Welcome everyone to our Study Abroad podcast series. So, today we have Aditya who is studying in US. So, we'll be knowing about his journey from India to US. So, welcome Aditya to our podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's nice to meet you.
So, Aditya, when was the very first time you thought that maybe I should go abroad and there is something like abroad studies?
So this was during my undergrad when I seriously decided to pursue higher studies abroad. So I did my undergrad in engineering physics at IIT Madras, and I was interested in uh, physics and pursuing physics. Particularly, I was more interested in experimental quantum optics, and this is a field which sort of necessitated it required me to look outside India for opportunities for career growth. Uh, so that's around that time is when I decided, okay, I should really start thinking about pursuing higher studies abroad. And given the nature of my field, I decided to do a PhD rather than a master's. So yeah, I would say during the fourth semester of my undergrad is when I really seriously started thinking about it. And then my third and fourth year, I've been sort of working towards that, keeping the study abroad goal in the back of my mind while doing my undergrad.
Sure, sure. So, I think I see on your LinkedIn that you did internship kind of thing in one of the summers. Could you tell us a
Yeah,
bit about that?
yeah, sure. So throughout my undergrad, I was interested in research. I worked in different labs, worked with some professors on different research topics. So for the summer, which was mm around April to May to August 2023, I decided from my internship, I decided to pursue a research internship, uh, preferably one abroad, because one, it would just give me a different kind of exposure, like how labs work outside India. Also, having more research experience obviously helps when one wants to pursue higher studies. So, keeping that goal in mind, from I'd say around October 2022. From then on, I started keeping an eye out on research internship opportunities. And I'd applied for a couple and finally settled on pursuing my internship in Canada at the University of Alberta through a program called MyTax. I think, unfortunately, the program is not open to Indian students anymore. Uh, but I recommend listeners double check that. But yeah, I spent 3 months in Edmonton, is the city's name, in Edmonton, pursuing an internship at the University of Alberta.
So this was your first abroad trip and internship, etc., or you had been to abroad before?
No, I was, well, through college, I had been abroad before. So at the end of my second year, so after my fourth semester, around July 2022, I went to Europe for a competition. So IIT Madras has a pretty good Hyperloop team. It has been getting some media attention too recently. It's called Team Avishkar Hyperloop. So I was part of the team for nearly a year. Uh, and At the end of every year, we go to a competition called the European Hyperloop Week. It happens in one of four cities in Europe. It's hosted by one of four universities, four European universities. So as a part of that competition, I went to TU Delft, which is in Netherlands. So yeah, that was my first trip going abroad through college, and then yeah, the internship was something I was fortunate to pursue the summer after.
So first trip was Delft, Netherlands, second
Yep,
Edmonton, Canada, third US.
third US. Yeah,
Okay, sure, sure. So you actually got that, the seed was already been in your mind and then it grew, manifested with all these
yeah,
events.
yeah. True. Yeah, I think initially when I joined Avishka, the Hyperloop team, it wasn't really in my mind that we'll end up going abroad, because at that time there was a lot of uncertainty with COVID and all other factors. But then, fortunately that happened. But then the internship was something I really sort of manifested, and I I sort of made it a point that I should do some research internship abroad just for the experience. And, you get to meet a very different set of people, visit a new city, and also kind of have a vacation too, I guess, in a sense. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Learning while traveling.
exactly. Exactly.
Sure, sure. So when you were applying to Caltech, did you also apply to other universities? How many colleges did you apply to that time?
Yeah, I did. So I applied to 10 places in total. So how I narrowed it down to 10 was normally, I think anywhere between 8 to 12 is a good number in general. Uh, Especially like the fees, application fees are not cheap. They range anywhere between 80 to $120. And then you have TOEFL, you have to send TOEFL scores, GRE, all those kinds of things. So it can get very expensive. Uh, I think 8 to 12 is usually a good number. I applied to 10. So the places I applied to were Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Princeton, Caltech, uh, Duke, University of Colorado Boulder, University of Maryland in College Park, and University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Yeah, I
Mainly
think
US
I'm.
universities. Only
Yeah, so
US
I applied.
universities.
Yeah, I applied only to US universities, only for PhDs. Again, this was a decision based on the field of interest, and yeah, it was mainly I mainly chose these universities and the US because of options I had in the field I was interested in. It was Yeah, when students sort of shortlist their universities, I strongly recommend uh, any factor they take into account is sort of subjective to the field of interest they are interested in, and also their goals both during their graduate studies and potentially after. In some cases, it might make more sense to go to Europe, some cases Australia, Singapore, so on. But for me, it made more sense to come to the US. So yeah, that's what uh, defined the colleges I applied to.
Sure, sure, sure. And how was your visa application process like?
Visa was very smooth. So once you get an admit and you and accept the offer, so once I accepted Caltech's offer, I got in touch with the international student office. We just had to give some details and they give an I-20 form. And once I have that, I have all the documents required from the university to fill out my visa application form. I filled the form. I was sort of waiting for the visa interview slots to open. And the moment they opened, I made sure I booked a slot and I got my visa. It was pretty straightforward for me. Even during the visa interview, too, uh, they wasn't asking too many questions. Uh, so yeah, for me, the visa interview process was pretty smooth. And at least based on what I've spoken with some of my friends, that is likely because a PhD is funded. So they're not too concerned about how you're going to fund your program because your program is already funded. So yeah,
So in your case, you got like a fully funded PhD admit.
yeah, yeah. So my PhD is fully funded. I my tuition any tuition fee I have to pay is waived. So normally PhD students do have a tuition fee, but usually it gets waived for PhD students. So I have a waived tuition fee and also get a monthly stipend to cover living costs.
Sure, sure. And this is like part of RATA fellowship kind of thing?
Uh, it does qualify as a fellowship. Uh, it is, I mean, the purpose of the stipend is for you to do research, and the exact contract will depend from college to college. In Caltech, also it can vary from department to department too. So for me in Caltech, in my department, which is applied physics, the first year I get a fellowship from the department, but then after subsequently my advisor has to uh, sort of fund me, which I guess one could call an RA ship. So yeah.
For the audience sake, could you just explain what is TARA and fellowship in like few words?
Sure. So TA ship is uh, So faculty teach courses, and almost all courses require some additional support for the faculty, say to correct or grade assignments, or you know post homeworks on like the online platform they use. So usually they recruit students to do this. Uh, so a student who does this is called a teaching assistant, and usually they get paid a small amount of money for their services. RA stands for research assistant, which basically means a student works in a professor's lab, and for that the student gets paid. I personally haven't heard or come across people use RA-ship in the context of PhDs, because when you say you're doing a PhD, it's by virtue, yeah, you are going to be a full-time research scholar in the lab. So I think it's more important in the context of masters. I have masters friends who are trying to get TA ships and or RA ships to make some additional money. Uh, Fellowships are slightly different. In the end, for the student, it's the same as a TA ship or RA ship, but sort of changes for the faculty. So typically, if for example, me, I join a lab as a PhD student. My professor or my advisor pays my salary. But if I had a fellowship, my professor wouldn't be paying my salary. I would rather be paid by the fellowship itself. So in the end, for me, as the student or the person who got the fellowship, it won't make a huge difference, at least monetarily. But it would be easier on the faculty side because he or she won't have to pay my salary, but it is taken care of by some external agency. So yeah, broadly, these three are the differences. Also, the fellowship which I mentioned, I guess it's more in the context for PhD students. If you're a master student and you get a fellowship, you could use that to say fund your like pay your tuition fee, spend it on your living costs and so on. Uh, so I hope this clarifies some aspects of RATA and fellowships.
Sure, sure, sure. Fellowship is more on external agency, and RATA is more on the professor who is
Exactly.
helping.
Yeah, professor and or department. It again varies from college and department, but yeah.
Sure, sure, sure. And once you got your visa done, you had to book your accommodation. So, how was the accommodation booking in your process?
So Caltech offer student housing for first year graduate students. So there's not exactly like a hostel, but it is in a way similar in the sense you're given your own apartment. So it's either two bedroom, four bedroom, or single bedroom based on what you opt for. And you sort of have your own kitchen, bathroom, everything. So you're basically living by yourself. But then all the graduate student houses are packed together in the same block. So it kind of feels like you're in a hostel with all your peer group around you, but you still technically live independently in your own house and you don't have like say mess facilities and things like that. So first year Caltech guarantees that. So that's what I opted for. But moving forward, I'll have to look for other places nearby and
Sure, sure,
opt
sure.
for one of those.
And once you joined Caltech, you probably had to do your cooking, cleaning, etc. by your own. How was that transition in your case?
For me, it wasn't too bad. I had some experience because I was in Canada for 3 months. So I had a sense of how to balance that along with work. Um, a strategy a lot of students use is called meal prepping. So they cook 3, 4 meals in bulk, keep it in the fridge, and then just take it to work. That's what I do. I cook 4 meals at once and then keep it in the fridge. Uh, yeah, cleaning is a bit of work. Uh, you have to clean your house and your bathroom and everything. But yeah, it's you end up getting used to it eventually. And for washing as well, it's we have a in unit set of washing machines, so we take our laundry to the laundry room, put in the washing machine, pay $1.25, and then shift once it's done, dryer, and then you go back home. So yeah, I would say that pretty much covers cooking and cleaning. So yeah.
Yeah. Sure, sure, sure. And once you joined Caltech, you could see some difference in the education system of, let's say, India versus US or IIT versus Caltech. What were some key points you could highlight?
Well, in Caltech, the coursework was a lot more rigorous in the sense that here we had weekly assignments which we had to submit. And I think a key difference is here final exams are not timed 3 or 4 hour exams like how they were in IIT. All courses have take home exams. So they either so for one class I had an entire week to work on my final exam. In some cases, they're limited to 24 hours, some cases 6 hours, but every course has a take home exam. You don't have to physically be present in the class to sit and write the exam. Also, collaboration is strongly encouraged over here, especially on the homeworks, not on the final exam. So they make it a point to encourage you to collaborate with your students. Obviously, you should not copy from each other, but collaborate, discuss ideas, and then you write your solution independently. Um, so yeah.
Correct, correct. So, did you struggle a bit for your initial few assignments, or it was okay for you, or you helped others who are struggling?
Um, I mean, it wasn't difficult. It was, I mean, I guess the level of uh, questions as such, or the level of the material was very similar to what I had in IIT. Uh, yeah, it was just the intensity with which we had to do the course, which differed. For example, in IIT, I didn't. Very few courses had these sorts of weekly assignments or assignments, and the exams were also closed book, in person, timed. So the approach you had for those courses were very different to the ones we have here. But yeah, I wouldn't say the material as such was more difficult. It's more of getting adjusted to the different pattern of the course itself, which is really the important thing.
Sure, sure. So, you have already decided your research topics, or you have yet to decide?
Um, so I haven't decided my topic yet. In Caltech, they have a facility where you can work in different labs for the first year before you pick your advisor. So the idea behind this being you one get a feel for the topic the lab works on, and also two the lab culture and whether that style of advising suits you, like the advisor style of advising that is suits you. So we don't need to fix our advisor until June. So the past 3 months I was working in a lab which worked on a particular topic, and the next 3 months I'm thinking of working in a different lab to see how I like a slightly different uh, area of study, and also the how the different lab culture sets with me. So yeah, but very broadly, I would say I'll be working on something in quantum optics, but the exact niche is yet to be figured out.
Sure, sure. And do you have like provision of summer internships in subsequent summer breaks?
Oh, people have done internships here some in the summer, but that's conditioned on one the state of a PhD at that point, and also your advisor needs to be fine with you pursuing it. Uh, Not everyone does an internship, but if people do, it's usually at the end of their fourth year or maybe fifth year too, if they haven't graduated yet.
Sure, sure. And some of the labs, are funded by consortium like companies, like conglomerate companies, 4 or 5 companies together. And sometimes this summer internship are nothing but like an extension of your current research, but you have to
Mhm.
go to the company and do. So, do you see those kind of groups in floating around in your department?
And this one, there are a couple of groups which have strong industry collaboration. There's uh, so people who are aware of the field might have heard of the AWS Center for Quantum Computing, which is in strong collaboration with Caltech. So groups who collaborate with them often send students to Amazon to do that intern or do some sort of project with AWS. So it does happen. I'm not too sure of other departments or other fields, but in the field I am in, it definitely happens. And
Sure,
it's in addition to AWS, we also have something called Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, which is run by NASA and Caltech. So students do pursue research with scientists over there too. So that's also pretty common over here.
sure. So, what are your future goals for the next few years?
Next few years, uh, enjoy PhD, enjoy life in America. Uh, I mean, I have some idea of what I want to do after my PhD. I think I want to get into the industry in some form, but haven't thought too much about it. Uh, the immediate focus is obviously to do a really good PhD and do some really good research. Uh, but yeah, I would say long term, I would want to be involved in some form of uh, industry research. Academia at the moment is unlikely for me, I think. But you never know how things will change over the next 5, 6 years.
Sure. And what advice would you give to younger yourself?
Younger myself, uh, I would say enjoy the process, continue working hard. The hard work will definitely pay off at some point. Sometimes it pays off soon, sometimes it pays off late, but it always will pay off.
Sure. Any recommendation on usage of LinkedIn for the youngsters?
Usage of LinkedIn. I primarily use LinkedIn to get in touch with either seniors who had graduated from IIT Madras or know current students in research groups I was interested in to get connected with them. And that strategy wasn't a bad one, I feel, in hindsight. So I think something along those lines is definitely a good idea. I mean, it's a powerful tool to get connected with people. Uh, so I would say make the most use out of it. If you think there's someone out there who you think can help you, don't be afraid to reach out to them because almost certainly they will be willing to help you if they have the time because we all have been in a similar situation at some point.
Sure. So, connecting to a potential advisor, senior kind of thing.
Yeah, anyone who you think can mm, help you or mentor you in some form, even if it's for a very small thing or for a very small period of time.
Sure. So, thank you very much, Aditya, and sharing your experiences and your bits and pieces of visa application, etc. So, we hope our audience would have learned something from this podcast. So, have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.